Morning, Erev Shabbos, Shura, Tafshin Pei Aleph. We're holding in Rambam, the beginning of Hilchas Geirushin. So, Perik Aleph Halacha Hey. Rambam writes, Zeh Shenema B'Teira, Shilcha Mi Beisai, Ein in Yonai Shele Yigmru Geirushin Achatetz Mi Beisai. It says Shilcha Mi Beisai. Doesn't mean that she's not divorced till she leaves his house. Ela Mashiach get liada. Gamru Geirushin. As soon as she gets it, she's done. Hava Pisha dying either Beisai, even though she's still in his house, because she's born. It says V'shilcha Mi Beisai. Leinama V'shilcha. Interesting that he doesn't repeat the Beisai. Elashem Girish, somebody divorces his wife and does not take her out of his house. So that's a din of Mazir Gishas. The Frichach Tzricha Imenu get Sheni, Kamashi is bar. Now, this halacha that he's referring to, Hashtus halacha in Sugya Megmar Gittin, of Lani Mobit Pundik, which we'll talk about soon. But the Lashon Rambam seems to indicate Tzrichim Mena Get Sheni. He doesn't say it's Misafik. He says Tzrichim Mena Get Sheni. That's what you need. You need to get Sheni. Not a Safik Get Sheni. And of them, Shalom Zodach Reinim. That doesn't make sense. The Gemara talks about a case where somebody's megarish his wife, so it's a shaila of a sofig at most. But where do we find this halacha? That the pasuk Mishilcha teaches us. So, in a lot of people say that Ram doesn't mean that. That's the consensus, I think, amongst many Achrayim. However, the Ragich of it says, the Lashon Rabbeinu is muchach, that as long as she stays in his house after the divorce, it's like getting married. You don't need yichud. And therefore, the Mishnah talks Lani Pundikin. Then you need the Shaila and the Yichud and the beer, you need everything. But Beisai in his house, all that is not necessary. And he compares it to a Sugin Ksubis, where the father gives over to the Shluchei Hambal, she's, according to many, that's already Masir L'chup. It's also like a Masir L'chup. Okay, the comparison can be done what it is, but that's not for now. So, Kuptavis agrees to Chiddush from them that, according to the Rambam, if after Geirushin she stays in his house, this is the Suyin. And therefore is answered the question that we asked. It's because we're not talking about the Rambam, we're talking about the Raisa, we're not talking about the Safik, we're talking about the Suyin Gemara. And it's learned from this passage. Now, I don't know what this is. What kind of Suyin is this? How does that work? Okay. Then in Perik Yud, the Lochi Ches, the Rambam writes, "Is Yachid Ima b'fnei Eden who sheiyah shnei Eden ke'echad." In Ma'aseh Megureshes when he's doing Chayshes Shelo Shem Aniva Lo V'Heinen Eden Yichah V'Heinen Eden. So, and that's the Nekuda that he speaks about. So that's what the Tzafis of that. The Ragid Shabbos says. And that's a difference. And he references the Magid Mishnah in Hilchas Nachlis that he brings a Yerushalmi on the case of there's a case where a person was Megarish Ishta and remains with her afterwards. Is Arei Ke'eshes Ish Vadai, the Yerushalmi says. And the Raiva doesn't learn it like that, but that's the way the Yerushalmi learned it. The way the Magid Mishnah learns Yerushalmi. So And then again, the Rogatchover goes back to his Chiddush that they stay in the house after the get is different than going in a pundik in a different place. In a different place, you need here, it's just the mere fact that they're there, that she didn't leave, it becomes a kiddush. There's going to need some beer, this svara, and again, how did this happen without Adam? Pashtus is no Adam, because we're not talking about Hein Hediyach. So how does this happen? Unless he means there are Adam, just not together Adam in an Hediyach, but he doesn't explain himself, which is it's not a time because the Archon assumes we understand more than we do, but as Adas. There's another approach, and with this question involved, where's the Eid Yichud there? How does the Rambam write that it's Geirushin, on that issue? So in the Achreinim, they reference a famous Ra'ah that's brought in Shuras Rivash, and it's also brought in other places. Shmuel brings it down. And it's a shaila that unfortunately is a very serious shaila that Pesachim have to deal with in this day and age. That is that a person lives, a woman and a man live together as husband and wife for many, in public. So the Ra says that you don't need anything. You don't need the Ichud, you don't need anything. Because since it's obvious that she's his wife, everybody knows that there was Nachas Yachad or Bala, and therefore she's Mekadeshes, which obviously puts into jeopardy many of the marriages that we deal with, unfortunately, because if they live together with somebody and then they broke up, or they lost Nam, and then they want to get married, it's not so posh. According to the however, the Rivash, when he brings him down, he writes on the Ra'ah, Zehu das yochid, shekol rishonim zal kosu shetzricha leidich. You do need eidich, then it's not a Geirushin. Okay. I guess guys can maybe rely on that. It's interesting. The Beis Shmuel in Simon Lamed Aleph talks about a woman who was niskadish through Kesef, and then they found out that it wasn't a Shava Pruta. But since they live together, he wants to rely on the Rivash, that you don't need anything. So it's good. She's married, and she's Mekadeshes. Okay, so I don't think this is the approach of the Rogatchover, but we have l'cha'era in front of us two approaches to understand the Rambam. One is that, but this is in the Lashon Hara. But let's there's the Rogatchover's approach that because she stayed in his house, so she's Mekudeshes about that. And the second story is based on the Ra'ah that since they lived together for a while, and she's his wife and Medas Tachta, everybody knows that the word would be here, if you want to apply the Ra'ah, you don't need to say that they have to be a long time. Since they were married, and we assume, this is an assumption, that the base side, they're living together. Okay, now let's examine the words of the Rambam. Maybe we can get an insight that might even work very nicely with the Rogatchover, or might be independent of it, but it doesn't really matter. It's just understanding the words of the Rambam, as we try to do every week. The Rambam writes again. The phrase of the Rambam is like "Nema v'shilcha eloshem girish v'leitzia mibeisa areza kemisha girish v'hefzek v'shas." The Chayr is diukus v'shilcha mibeisa, as we said earlier. So why does he say like "Nema v'shilcha"? It's not the diuk v'shilcha. V'shilcha is not a problem. Not only that, v'shilcha he took care of already. Shilcha in Halacha Gimel, Halacha right before this. No, this is Halacha Hey, Halacha Dalet is a continuation of Gimel. He writes, "V'shilcha sheyeh inyan haget shuhu ha'mishaleach oisa, lo sheyishlach atzmei mimena." That when you write a get, you gotta the husband has to be the only actor, the action here. The woman is not a bahachi in a get. She's already a makabel, not a giver, not involved. It has to be he's sending her, and then it has to be clear in the get. Not that he is sending himself away or any of that. It's a clear cut. Then the question is, Manashach, why is it Kimisha Girish Shase? It's Girish Shase. And this is it. He was with Geirushin, he was Mazur. So what's the Kimi? Again, the question of the Ragat Shabbos, where's the Aiden? And the question, if you go with the Ra, it's a Das Yochid according to everybody. So to say that the Rambam passes like that, and to assume that the Rambam holds like the Ra is a big chiddush, because nobody ever quotes the Rambam as holding like the Ra and being part of that shit. Another issue. Rambam begins the Perek Aleph and Ilchis Geirushin, with a very interesting halacha. He starts off explaining 10 things that a get needs. And he enumerates them and where they are written in the Torah. And he writes, he does not bring this idea of Girish relates in basic. So if so, why does it suddenly show up here in Halacha Hey when he's enumerating and explaining the sources of the 10 things? If you're going to say, because he was talking about the Shilcha, no, I don't know that we find that in the Rambam. It's the Gemara more you'll find such type of things. But you don't find the Rambam because he mentions Shilcha. You get to bring Allah to the Shilcha. It's a little strange to say that. Another issue is the Arichus HaLoshen in this Rambam. And why he has to say the negative. Says Mishilcha Basic. And then he explains. Ella Mishiagia get Yoda Gomru Geirushin. He could have written straight out. Zev Shanema B'Torah Shilcha Basic. In Girish Leitzim Basic. And or he could have added the words miyadshe and kiblar, miyadshe gia gesh. What's this whole arichas in before? What's not? Let's talk about what it is. I'm not a safe. I'm talking about us. And then right there, but what's this whole the whole introduction? It's not shot this and shot it. Then there's an interesting. Just that this is really not. I wouldn't call this a problem or but it's just a. When you find sometimes that I'm using a lashon that's a little. It's not the usual lashon. He writes in Halacha Gimel B'Shilcha Sheyei Inyan Haget Shu Mishaleachis. Right? Lo Sheyishlach Atzima. Why does he write Sheyei Inyan Haget? To be Inyan Haget. Right. And like he writes on Lochik, Aleph, Inyan Aksav. Okay, even in the Inyan, the word Lashon Inyan is an interesting Lashon here to be used. Now, as much as I'm saying this is not really a deal, but I think this is how you say this is if it's true. Perhaps you can say that the Yesod of Halacha Gimel is not only the Lashon, But that's the Indian of the get. That he is the Megarish. He is as he Megarish Mesir Mikinyon. That's what it has to be. And that's why he stresses Indian I get. That's the whole the get. It's not only the Lashon I get, it's the Indian of the get. Oh. So he says that's where Halacha Hey comes in, if that's the case. Because if she needs to leave his house, then you can't say the Indian I get is that he's doing everything. Because it depends on her. I mean, I don't think that the Torah, where the assumption is that the Torah wants him to pick her up and throw her out. It's not that would be the din in the Torah. It would be that she has to leave. And we'll see soon where that Lashon really comes from. And that's why he writes right away this Halacha Hey, following Halacha Gimel Dal. Since the Inyan get is that he is being Megarisher, so therefore it doesn't. He has to say it doesn't mean she should leave the house, because then it would be lacking in that part. Then she's involved in the Geirushin. It has to be him. It has to be Al Yoda. So if that's the case, then there's nothing that makes sense why it's here. And that's why he says, and here also he writes an interesting allotion. The Indian of the get is not there. Because then it'll be Chassan V'Shilcha. That's why he writes the V'Shilcha only. Even the V'Shilcha alone, it's not she, and you not get that he's being Mishaleach. Okay. So he says, that's why so even though his beginning is the Vishulcha Mi Beisai, and it means she doesn't have to leave, and the writes Vishagia get Yada, but the Pasuk Vishilcha, the Torah is teaching us that if she doesn't leave his house, if he doesn't send her out of the house, then there is a Geirushin happening here. That's what Rambam says. The Geirushin is happening here. And that's what he means is it's not a it's part of Gittin, that the Gittin requires you to get out of the house, and if not, the Tutzach HaKedushim. Not as a Geirushin means there was a get and the Geirushin have no shaychus to the get. This is a get that's neveya, that comes from the fact that in your get you kept her. That's the Gzeirus HaKosov that the Rambam learns here. V'shilcha, that he has to v'shilcha mi beisai, that the Geirushin is done, but a Geirushin that doesn't take her out of the house is a Geirushin. Das lernt Rab. Where's his market? Yishalmi, whatever, where he gets from. Well, where does this come from? Where does this idea come from? So I again want to suggest that we know that the Rebbe has a Meidadiki Yisaid in Hilchas Ishus based on what the Rambam writes in the Akdama to the Halacha. When he starts off Halacha of Hilchas Ishus, he writes Koydem Matan Torah Hoya Odom Pegei Isha B'Shuk Im Rotza Hu V'Hi Lisa Oisa Machnisa Lebeisai Ubayala Beinoi Lebein Atzmai B'Tia Leilish. So we know the Rebbe's diuk, why the Rambam suddenly is interested in Koydem Matan Torah, and again the Rambam said the Derech HaRambam to get involved in Koydem Matan Torah. And therefore the Rebbe says that Nisuyin is not a chiddush of after Matan Torah. That existed before. What's the chiddush is kiddush, and that's a pellet chiddush, because you don't own a wife. There it is. As the Rebbe explains in the Pnimis and Yanim, it's the kedusha of kedusha. But that chiddush, that there is a kedusha, is a keddushin. That's the chiddush of a yid. That's the chiddush of a yid. Now, the Indian is Suyin. He says that's the Machnisa l'teich beisa v'tiyel elisha, and that there's no difference. You can't matter lachman, and that's why he brings kaidam matan the seder of kaidam matan. It's you do the gesicha, they knows it, but it's one of the ledaiti. It's a learning of kedushin ganz anders with this mahalach. It's a whole different kedushin. We learned it last year. That we learned kedushin last year in yeshivas. There's no shaila. I mean, it changes the way you think, the way you look at the whole masech. Akolpon, and I think it's one of the like innovations that at least I haven't found anywhere. Any such a uptight and such a posture to uptight Rambam. It's like you can't learn that Rambam without Alam Muchnas. What does it mean? What comes out from that? That Nisuyin, which is the Iker Inyan issues of Achim Matan, is the same as before Matan. What is that? Living as husband and wife. In order for there should be chal, the isha, the shem nisuyin, this is the same before. The chiddush is that there's kedushin. Okay. Now in Hilchos Malachim, Perek Tes Halacha Ches, Negei ben Noach says, "Me'emes aitia eishes chaveri kegrusha." When will a goy be considered like a grusha, a goita, considered a grusha, shalanu, ki grusha shalanu, I'm sorry. When he takes her out of the house and he sends her away. And then he writes, or she goes out on her own. And then he ends up with a line. Geirushin b'ksav. They don't have the Geirushin b'ksav. Which is the shilcha that we spoke about. It's not only totally in him. It calls Mashiyah, but he live for example, he's that person. That's the separating, or what they call it. We said before, breaking up. But that's it. But break up means going out of the house. So in the last year, Taki, in the sugya of chuppah, Kana, the min chuppah, I was medayik in the Rambam that when the Rambam talks about chuppah, he speaks about sheyavi oisol l'teich beisa, v'yis yached ima v'yafrishen aloi, v'yichud zeh hu anikra knisa l'chuppah, hu anikra nisuim b'chol. Okay, so he uses interesting lashon. Sheyavi oisol l'teich beisa, v'yis yached ima v'yafrishen aloi. We mentioned earlier that the Rambam brought that Kedem Matan Torah. What was the Nisuyin of Kedem Matan Torah? Machnisa lebeisa ubayala. Which L'cheira is the chuppah of today. Machnisa lebeisa is Yachadima. Yafishem. Okay, so he says, so we explained over there this Indian of what Machnis al-Beisa. Now, if you're Medayik in Hilchos Malachim, he l'chayre reverses the Machnis al-Beisa, Mishitzian al-Beisa, and he adds V'shalchen al-Atzma. So l'chayre is the same idea. You're undoing that's what you did. You had the Machnis al-Beisa, so you might see al-Beisa, and then you have the Yichud and Afrosha. So that's V'shalchen al-Atzma. She's now on her own. So those are the two things. So he says, also, there was the Achnasa, Tachas V'shusay, and Machnisa L'Beisa, and Obeila, which is Chayishis. And in order to be a Geirushin, you need Metzila Beisa, which you take away the Rishus that he has, Tachas Rishusai, and Shachen Al-Atzmai, which is the bittul of the Chayishus. So, just to get the picture, by a Benayach, in order to make her a Gerusha Shalanu, you have to take her out of the house. And this is Mevatel, the Machnisa Lebeisa. Now, what we said before is that the Chuppah is that same minion of Machnisa Lebeisa. Shiyavi Yisrael Tech Beisa. And then there's the Yisyachadima, which is the Chayishus. So, first of all, we understand why there would be a sword that you need to get her out of the house. Because that's the way it was, that's the way it is in the Kedem Matan Torah Dik in Nisuyin. So even though we were in a Chadish, a Ksav, a Get, but there's every reason to assume that remains. You have to be So the Rambam has to say no. That even though even though there's a tzerich in Meitzimi Beisa, but and there's a Geirushin B'Ksav, that's it, that's enough. Oh, and therefore he stresses again that the get takes care of everything. It knocks out. It's not a separate thing. You need also, you see, but the get takes care of everything. That's his arichas alosh. That was what he shailel is shailel davar that b'cheira al isvara would be, especially with the Rebbe learns that Nisuyin still continues. So we would think that there's a chaylik that has to do with that type of Geirushin too, and especially then the Torah B'Shul K'mei Beisa. So it makes sense that we need to get her out of the house too. And that's why he says no, that the get does everything. Oh, so now is the Hetzach Shem that, again, remember, the Nisuyin is the Nisuyin of Kedem Matan Torah. And in the Kedem Matan Torah, there is a Maila of Yitzimi Beis. So, land the Rambam that this, in the Pasuk of Vishilcha, there is a Gzeres HaKosav that there is something still left of that Mitzimi Beis. And what's left of it? Not in the actual Geirushin. Rather, Kima Shagia get me other. She's Megreshis. But it helps enough that there is Ki'ilu of Kedushin here. It's Machnisa L'Teit Beis of Yichadim. You need Kedushin all the time. You need the whole process. This is a Chiddush of the Geirus HaKosav, that there is a type of Kedushin that doesn't work with Kedushin. It works. Oh, you go straight to that Kedem Matan Torah type of Kedushin. Machnisa L'Beisa. And in other words, the Chiddush of the Pasuk is that we are now resorting to the Kedem Matan Torah the Kedushin without the process of Kedushin. How does that work? I don't know. That's Gzeres HaKosav. That's clear that it's Gzeres HaKosav. Rambam says it's Gzeres HaKosav. But there's at least a process that we can understand in the Gzeres HaKosav. When it comes to Rosh Hashanah, the Rebbe says that there's two in Yonim. There's why the Eibishter created the world that we don't know, but we know once he created it, what he wants. Here also, we don't know why, where it comes from, but at least you know the process, how it works. It works is that we're now resorting to that the Torah is telling us that chelik still now becomes the way of marriage, of the Kedem Matan Torah, the way of marriage, and that's why it's kemi. Because there is no real marriage. There is no process of marriage. Even stronger than what we said before. There's no real process of marriage. Because there's no kedusha, there's no edom, there's nothing. But there's machnisa lebeisa, that chelik that she's in his house and v'yichad ima or machnisa lebeisa bayala. That's it. And that the Torah is mechadish. That there's a new type of Nisuyim. There's a Nisuyim of Kedem Matan Torah that can remain, and that's the Kemish Magal, the Sheikh Zirishas. Atkan, Agut Tivach, Agut Yor, Agut Machsim Teva, and the Metz Hashem, I'm hoping that we'll be able to do it next week also, Be'ez Hashem, as it is Erev Sukkos. Hatzlocher Rabba, a good given share, gemachsim etele.